Hey guys, it's Ashley Francis with Blue Sage Counseling and Wellness, and today I'm going to talk about workplace stress and mental health. This is a really important subject. Whenever anybody asks us, how are we doing? How was your day? Of course, one of the top things that we go to is talking about our work life. It's where we spend most of our time anyway, at least most of us do. And it's a really big factor of our lives. And it can also be a really great source of stress, anxiety, depression. So it's definitely worth talking about, especially because there are a lot of things that happen at the workplace that can induce some symptoms of anxiety, depression, and the like that oftentimes fly under the radar. It's something that we can easily explain away. We get desensitized to it. We kind of think that, well, everybody else is going through this, so it must be normal. But I want to shed a little bit of light on some of these misconceptions and hopefully be able to also provide some practical, tactical tools to be able to address these symptoms so that they don't lead to some greater complications and issues in the long run. First, let's talk about why does it matter? Why are we talking about this in the first place? So for two big reasons. One is because it is pervasive, and the second is because it is expensive. We'll talk about the pervasiveness of it first. First and foremost, over 300 million people worldwide suffer from depression. 300 million people. This is a really big problem. And it's the leading reason why people go on disability. Yeah, that's crazy. The leading reason why people go into disability. It's a distraction. It's a distraction for you, the employee, but it's also a distraction for the employer. Most people want to be able to go to their job, do a good job, feel satisfied, feel fulfilled at the end of the day, and just kind of feel good about what they're doing in life. But if they're feeling depressed or they're overly stressed, then it can lead to some greater complications, such as having to go on disability. Now, this could be in the form of short-term disability or long-term disability. And most people don't want to do that. It's nice to kind of fantasize about being able to have 8 weeks or 12 weeks off of work. Wouldn't that be so nice? But, usually after the first week or so, we're bored. We want to get back to work and we want to have a sense of purpose. Yeah, it's one of the biggest reasons why people go on disability, and they may not even necessarily want to. The second reason is because it is so expensive, and there are direct costs and there are indirect costs. So when we're talking about direct costs, we're more talking about medication, doctor's visits, absenteeism, but also presenteeism, which is a concept that is not as well known, which basically means that the person is physically present at work, but they are not mentally there. And I know you know these types of people that I'm talking about. You might even be one of these people yourself. They're just there to get the job done. They just kind of feel like life has been sucked out of them. They don't really have a purpose. They certainly don't have joy for what they're doing. They're just there to make a paycheck. And honestly, I think this one affects more people than any other because most people have to make that paycheck. They have to pay the rent or the mortgage, or they have a family to take care of. So they keep soldiering on and they keep going to work, but their soul is slowly being drawn out of their bodies. I actually think that this one is more common than not. It can be symptoms of depression and anxiety, or rather the result as well. So those are some of the direct costs. The indirect costs are things that typically happen in the long run. There was a study that showed that people in their 20s and 30s that were showing symptoms of anxiety and depression early on as it related to workplace stressors. There was a follow-up study that was done with them in their 40s, and they were already showing symptoms of physical problems such as cardiovascular disease and deficient immune responses. It's leading to a whole host of problems. These indirect costs can also lead to things like obesity and arthritis, neck and back pain, carpal tunnel syndrome. All of these things are typically associated with the desk jobs and being more sedentary, but they can also extend to other industries as well. So it's a real problem in that it affects a lot of people and it's not very well talked about, and it's also super expensive. There was actually a study that I did on workplace burnout, and some of the statistics I found were that burnout actually costs healthcare industries in particular billions of dollars a year. Billions of dollars for a variety of reasons. But one of the biggest things and most concerning was this concept of presenteeism, that you've got doctors or surgeons that are working super long hours. They're very overextended. If they make a mistake, it can literally be life or death. And sometimes it is. These types of things are happening. And that can lead to a whole host of problems, but it's also really expensive for them. So it really behooves these companies to take these things seriously, if anything, just from a financial perspective. We would hope it would be from a humane or human perspective as well, but sometimes we have to go with what speaks to the person, what speaks to the machine itself. What are the factors that contribute to the mental health problems? They are inflexible work schedules, the lack of support from management, the lack of clarity about work tasks or organizational objectives like deadlines that are constantly being moved, and unrealistic targets. There is also unsafe work environments such as sexual harassment. Sometimes it's covert, sometimes it's overt. There's varying degrees of not feeling safe in the environment. If you're getting picked on or bullied by a coworker or an employer and there's no one there to help you, that's an unsafe, toxic, hostile work environment, and it can lead to symptoms of anxiety and depression. And then also work overload. There's just too much to do with very little staff to be able to get it done. I don't know about you guys, but every single one of these has been relatable for sure. I have worked in corporate America, I've worked in the service industry, I've done customer service, I've done a variety of things, and I can check off every single one of these as something that I've experienced, and I know that for sure it resulted in me feeling some stress and for sure some anxiety. Let's talk about why people don't get help with this situation. Still, seeking help is stigmatized. We're afraid of being labeled. We're afraid of people and what they're going to think about us. They're going to laugh at us. But more importantly, in the workplace, it has other implications as well, such as being passed over for that promotion, or just having a negative view from your boss so that he or she might be passing you over for an important project or a task that you could be perfect for. These misconceptions or these opinions that your superiors can formulate about you can have these lasting effects that are detrimental to your career. And it's not fair, but unfortunately that's one of the reasons why we need to talk about and why this is such a big problem, so that we can destigmatize the issues, bring awareness to them, and then we can actually start having some tangible solutions. It's the only way it's going to happen. And statistics show that 3 in 10 people are embarrassed to even talk about anxiety and depression in the workplace. There's a lot of negative consequences that can result. And the negative opinion that your employer can have, I think the biggest thing is that it can be implicit. That a lot of employers are aware of HR laws that protect the employee from being discriminated against because of mental health issues. So in other words, if they pass you over for a promotion or are excluding you from a project, you actually have legal basis to be able to take that to HR and let them know that you feel like you've been discriminated against, and they are required by law to respond to that. And it may result in opening an investigation. There's a variety of things that can happen. But that's more of the formal route. I think what most people are most concerned about is the indirect opinions that the employer can have. If you have anxiety, or you have depression, or even new moms that are struggling to get their work done or struggling to show up on time, can have some discrimination against them. They may not be overtly aware that they are discriminating against that employee, but yet they have developed an indirect bias towards them that they may not even be aware of. And that can also negatively affect employees, leading to stress, anxiety, depression, and so forth. And also, it's important to mention that the very nature of depression leads to feelings of helplessness and hopelessness. So we're not very inclined to reach out for help when we're already feeling depressed. So there's also that added factor too of, if we're already feeling that way, it also makes us less likely to either speak up about it or even seek another job if the situation is bad enough. So how is it that people are already trying to help themselves? These are some of the typical ways. They'll either try to get more sleep, they'll try to exercise more, they will rely on alcohol or illicit drugs. Smoking is a big one as well, but also drinking more coffee. And most of these things are not healthy for us, but more importantly, they're not really helping the problem. They're just a Band-Aid solution for something very short term. And in fact, it's leading to more long-term problems for our physical health as well as our emotional health too. I think it's important to talk about some of the things that we can do instead that are healthier and actually found to make a difference. So let's talk about some of those things. What you can do is know the signs of the problem, recognize your triggers. If it is your employer, being able to identify every single time my employer has a conversation with me, I tense up or I get sweaty palms or I can't focus, I can't concentrate, or I'm being affected by the drama in the office, and every time I hear somebody starting to whisper, I start to feel my levels of anxiety raising. So the first step is really awareness. Start to identify really crystal clear about what are the contributing factors that are making you feel stress. And you might even want to keep a journal, just jot it down to make it a little easier. The next thing to do is make a to-do list. This is something that is so simple, but is often overlooked. With there being so much on our plates every single day in both our personal and professional lives, it can be easy to miss something or become slack in areas that we shouldn't. So having that to-do list is something that's really simple, but oftentimes it gets overlooked. The next thing is self-care, being able to take breaks throughout the day, to drink water, you can also bring personal items into the office that can help that kind of break up the day and make you feel more acclimated to your environment. A lot of these things, a lot of people either know and have gotten away from, or maybe it's something that they've explained away. I don't really need to take that break. I'm okay. But are you? Maybe you might want to consider, what are the long-term effects? I might feel okay in this moment, but I don't want heart disease, and I don't want to suffer from obesity. I don't want to die young, basically. So it's actually a good idea for me to get up and take a walk to be able to relieve some of this stress, even though I might be seemingly fine. The next thing is avoiding workplace gossip. This is a big one and happens in nearly every industry where there are several to many employees. And the biggest thing about this, and I know I struggled with this when I was in corporate America too. I was young and I was in my 20s. I was all up in people's business. And it just never turns out well. It just doesn't. If anything, it hurts morale. It strains relationships, because before you know it, you're caught up in someone else's drama or even your own drama, and it's hard for you to concentrate. It's hard to get tasks done. You're busy thinking about things that you shouldn't be, and it's just a huge strain on you and others. Next is avoiding taking on too much. This is a big one and can be really hard to do. This is about being able to set some healthy boundaries and being able to understand all of the things that you have on your plate and being able to understand where your threshold is. Now, this one is a little trickier, and I actually find that most people struggle with this one the most because they have a perception that they think that they are on top of things and they're really not. And so symptoms of anxiety and depression can be creeping up on them on the back end or on lower levels of consciousness. They feel symptoms of distress, but they don't really know why. And oftentimes it has to do with poor boundaries and really being able to identify when and where I do need to say no, how to be able to do it, how to tell my boss no. So these are all things that I can help you with, but also other mental health professionals as well. So you also want to set some small manageable goals. One of the things that I like to advise is if you can pick one small thing every single day that's moving you forward, you're a success. Absolutely. And there's that tendency to over-focus on that one small thing has got to be professionally oriented. Like if I am not working on cleaning up my emails today and the next day making my to-do list, so forth and so forth. Keep in mind that personal goals count too. Anything that you are doing to bring yourself forward, whether that be vocationally, financially, relationship-wise, self-care, exercise, all of those things count. So don't forget to include all areas of your life too when you're setting your small, manageable goals. And then finally, the last thing is just to get help. Just get help. If you feel like you've got a manager that you trust, talk to your manager. If you have one or two trusted coworkers where you're not going to be worried about engaging in gossip or having your business spread all over the office, talk to one of your friends or talk to a family member. And of course, always being able to talk to a counselor is the best option. There are a lot of organizations that have employee assistance programs through their HR, also known as EAP. I worked on EAP panels for a while and really enjoyed that work. It's more short term, and so that may be a better fit for you because a lot of people think, oh gosh, I'm going into therapy and I don't know how long it's going to take. It's going to be expensive. If you go through your EAP program, it's usually about 4 to 6 sessions. And some people are able to do it in that amount of time. Some aren't. But hey, it's better than nothing. The point is just to be able to speak up and ask for help. The last point that I want to make is to give some recognition to some companies that are getting it right. The good news throughout all of this is that the climate is changing. I've got a lot of HR folks that might be watching this video, and you're going to know better than I will, but it is motivating and inspiring to see that there are more corporations and more companies that are taking initiatives to really and actually take care of their employees and not just say that they are. So I want to give some shout outs to some of the companies that have established some of these initiatives. So one of which is American Express. They have an on-site health clinic where employees can come and they can obviously have evaluations for physical ailments, but they can also go there for their initiative called Healthy Minds, which has counselors at the clinic that employees can take advantage of. And they've actually gotten some awards for how well this initiative is working. So that's pretty impressive. The next one is Barclays Bank. They have a campaign called This Is Me. And it is designed around having employees talking about their own mental health. I love this because they're able to talk about their own stories. This helps to destigmatize and helps employees feel less alone. It's overall healthy and positive. The next one is CHG Healthcare. These people are really getting it right. They also have another on-site clinic that is actually free to their employees. Not sure if it was free at American Express, but I know CHG, it is free for their employees and their family. And they also offer other perks like alternative work schedules, flex time, and some job sharing as well. And then the last one is Netflix. Netflix is pretty well known for offering extremely flexible work schedules. So that also helps as well. I hope you have enjoyed our talk about workplace stress and mental health. It is obviously a very pervasive and expensive problem, but we do live in more exciting times where the stigma is becoming less, there are more available resources, and there are lots of things that you can also do on your end to be able to decrease that stress and to start feeling better about where you're at. If you like this video, please let me know in the comments, hit the like button, and if you'd like to hear more videos like this, hit that subscribe button. Take care.